Thank you, Dean. Thanks to everybody for being here bright and early this morning, and my thanks to my fellow panelists, and of course Dean for sort of steering the ship through this morning. I thought what I would do is give a quick sort of biography of the program with which I'm affiliated at Carleton, and talk a little bit about what we do, where our students are coming from, where our students are going to after a degree, just to kind of give us something with which that maybe certainly with the two programs that Michael and I are speaking about can be discussed, but also the context that Jean-Pierre will be providing in regards to the American context as a way to kind of give us some stuff to chew over and talk about in terms of thinking ahead and moving forward. Carleton's public history program began around, it's actually not clear if it began in 2002 or 2003, I'm going to say 2002. And since then, about half the coursework that students do in our two-year program are public history specific. So courses, an intro to public history, which is a combination of memory studies and looking at various histories of preservation movements, the professionalization of public history and this sort of thing. Courses in museums, digital history, performance and narrativity, as we're going to see some examples of after supper this evening. And in photography, in archives, and in cultural resource management. And one of the things about the structure is that the students do the bulk of their coursework in the first year with a little bit left over in the second year. And in between those first and second years is a paid internship, in which we kind of help students find positions usually within one of the larger government institutions in Ottawa, but increasingly we've been finding partners from the private sector and at the local level and also outside of Ottawa, and we're hoping to continue to do more of those. The program in the last few years has really embraced a tension that's been in our program since 2002, and that is a tension between the sort of theory of public history and the history of public history, and best practices. And so a lot of our courses are increasingly making that tension a very productive one, in the sense that there's a combination of reading books that you would consider more theoretical or conceptual, and also working on some sort of class project, usually partnered with somebody outside the university, or another colleague on the university. And it's a way for the students to kind of have one set of discussions in the classroom, to have that experience working, and then to bring that back to the readings and the discussions as the course unfolds. And this is something that has become a really big point of emphasis for us, is maintaining that tension between theory and practice. And I don't mean tension in the sense that they're at loggerheads, but one that kind of compels a different way of thinking and being reflexive about the work that you're doing. This kind of evolution, if I could call it that, is being reflected too in the ways in which our students' major projects, which they do in their second year, are emerging. For example, 3 of the last 4 students I've supervised haven't written the more traditional master's research essay, but have been producing things. For example, a documentary film, which we're going to see later by Alison Smith, a mobile app by Sarah Nixon, who's presenting this afternoon about that app. I have an audio podcast tour being developed for Parliament Hill, which is going to offer a sort of counter-narrative of thinking about Parliament Hill as a political space. And this kind of cultural work, this kind of thinking about ways of communicating, thinking about communicating one's research in ways other than in text, as important as that is something that we're certainly encouraging students and nurturing students and trying to provide the support, particularly when we have to call on expertise from outside of our own, since we're not filmmakers, app developers, or podcasters ourselves. And I think this is part of our emphasis on students building portfolios. And this is a language that we've been trying to introduce into our program with our students, that they should be kind of considering the work that they do in their classes as part of their professional portfolios. That it isn't just to be submitted for a grade, but that they should be thinking about ways in which that becomes a part of their professional identity in terms of work that they've done. Our students come from both history programs, but also non-history programs. We draw from anthropology, cultural studies, sociology. And this too brings a nice sort of energy and interdisciplinarity to the program. We get about 70 applicants a year, and we admit 7. And we're pretty ruthless about that. We place a lot of emphasis on the kind of experience that we want to be able to give our students, the kind of time and attention that for us, in terms of our resources, that's about the right number that we can do. And the result is we get students from Vancouver Island to Newfoundland every year. It brings this energy into the department as a whole. It brings us not just into public history, but into our department, to have people with these different backgrounds from different parts of the country and these different sensibilities about history and their relationship to it. And it is something that we're quite proud of, and in fact, something we take into consideration when we're plowing through those nice big piles of applications. Our graduates end up, as you probably can guess, being in Ottawa in in public institutions, but not just there. Some are finding work at the municipal and provincial levels with government, working in public history and public history related things. We're starting to get some people hired in the private sector. We've had a couple of students find work in the civil service, not in public history, but doing other kinds of work. I think the one I think of first is Peter Anderson, who's also in the program here, who worked for Department of Justice, teaching lawyers how to research in archives. And we're trying, this is one of the things that with having Jean-Pierre visiting us this year as a visiting fellow, that we're actually trying to get better at. 6 of our students over the last 10 years have gone on to PhD. And this, I think, reflects this tension I was talking about in the program between theory and practice. One of the things that's been really important to us is to keep these different pathways open to students that come into our program, who want to move out into their careers, but also some who want to move on to PhDs, whether in public history again, such as Erica Fagan is doing right now at the University of Massachusetts, or into a field just in history, or even, as we discovered, in geography and sociology, another place where our graduates have gone on to do PhDs. Good. One of the, I got to be careful how I talk about some of these things, of course. One of the, depending on who you're asking, benefits of the program for our department more broadly is the spillover effect that it's had on the nature of work being done by regular stream MA students and increasingly PhD students who are embracing public history topics. And so within our regular stream, we've had histories about monuments, about commemoration, usually more about the sort of politics of that or that sort of thing. And it's one of the things that colleagues as well are starting to take sort of public history turns in their own work. And we like to think that in part it's because of this amazing collection of students that we've had, the exciting work that they've been able to produce that have kind of fostered this emerging, I think, identity for my department increasingly. The last 3 PhD students we've admitted have all done public history as their major fields. Again, not an incident, and based on the inbox that Jim Opt and I just exchanging notes about this, we have at least 4 people applying next year to do the same as well. And this, to us, is a very interesting moment, because is a PhD in history public, where their public is their major field, the way to go, or is in fact, should we be having a serious conversation with our partners, with our colleagues, and in spaces like this about a PhD in public history, which would need to be fundamentally different from the do some coursework, go research a topic, and produce something. And so we're in this interesting moment where I, for example, supervising somebody who comes from a theater background, and his PhD is going to be writing a play about a 1958 miners' strike in Sudbury, staging that play with actors from Sudbury, both professional and non-professional, and sort of studying the ways in which their historical consciousness and their memories are kind of shaped or affected by doing this kind of theater work. It's all about labor history, working class history, and ultimately we think an important moment in public history. But that's still the PhD in history public. It gets us down the road to where we'd like to go, but it's not exactly, I think, the final destination.